What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and here we are right at the start, fresh of 2018, and I decided I would take a look at all of our current generation consoles, or can you really call them current, because one of them is actually 9th gen, and the other two are actually 8th generation, but these are the three current consoles, and we're going to take a look at them, and we're going to see what each one individually has to offer us. And based on the pros and cons of these videos, you'll be able to decide if you should buy one, or if it's for you or not. And real quick, just before we get any further into it, every price and date I'm going off in this video is based on European stuff. There might be some differences based on price or availability or release date in your region, but I'm currently going off everything as it was released in Europe and the current prices here in Ireland at the moment. So finally, we're going to look at Nintendo's offering, the Nintendo Switch. It's a very different console, and there's much more to say, and a lot more differences when it comes to what the other platform manufacturers have to offer. Something that is important to note as well is that while the other consoles have been out for over 4 years at this point, the Nintendo Switch hasn't even been out for 1 year on the market. Regardless of that, it hasn't stopped the console from selling over 10 million units in less than 1 year, which is absolutely no easy feat to do. Anyway, moving along, we'll look at the Nintendo Switch. The biggest thing to note about the Nintendo Switch is it's what Nintendo call a hybrid platform. Nintendo have stressed that it is first and foremost a home console with its portability and hybrid aspects as a secondary feature, but it's definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, what do we mean by it's a hybrid system and its portability aspect? Well, the Nintendo Switch is essentially a giant handheld device. Think of a PSP or even a 3DS, but bigger, but slightly different. It actually has a built-on 720p high-definition screen, and it can be played on the go because of its internal battery. But because it is a first and foremost home console, it comes with a dock to connect it to the TV, which also supplies the unit with a little bit more power to bring the quality closer to your HD TV at home versus the lower quality screen on the Nintendo Switch. So, first things first, games. What kind of game library can you expect going into the Nintendo Switch? Well, this is an absolute given at this point, and because it is a Nintendo console, you do get the absolute 10 out of 10 quality level of performance you would expect from Nintendo's first party IPs. From the amazing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, many people's and many outlets' Game of the Year 2017, to games like Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, and the absolutely phenomenal Super Mario Odyssey, one of the best Super Mario games in 2 decades. And going forward, you can expect more of that as well. Nintendo have announced many of their first party IPs have new entries into the franchises going forward. Games like Metroid Prime 4, a new Fire Emblem game, and a new Pokemon game, to name but a few, will all be making an appearance on Nintendo Switch in the near future of 2018 or maybe 2019. So as with most Nintendo consoles, you can rest assured that Nintendo have the first party side locked down, as they always do. But straight away, that's where the chinks in the armor start to appear. The Nintendo Switch has been receiving very select and not as robust third-party support from other companies, developers and manufacturers. One of the reasons for this, if not the main reason for this, is the Nintendo Switch is considerably less powerful than the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, to the point where many developers have said that they can't scale down their games low enough to have them run on the Nintendo Switch. But that hasn't stopped some companies from porting over some of their less demanding games, or even developing exclusive games for Nintendo Switch that will work on the system. For example, why Final Fantasy 15 may not be showing up on Nintendo Switch, Square Enix have announced that they're currently developing an exclusive title for the Nintendo Switch called Project Octopath Traveler, a game that kind of harkens back to the old Squaresoft days back with Nintendo, just done up and made a little bit more pretty for the modern 2018 era. And in my opinion, something it feels like Nintendo has really focused on is indie games and indie developers. If you ask me, they've done this because they know that they can't get the 100% top tier biggest name in third-party multi-platform games. You won't be seeing stuff like Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Red Dead Redemption 2. You won't be seeing the big, heavy-hitting names like that on Nintendo Switch. You will see their lower-end counterparts and some of the more niche and obscure games, as well as that Nintendo has chosen to focus so heavily on indie games, to plug up the holes, if you will. So what else does the Nintendo Switch offer when it comes to the system outside of the actual games themselves? Well, the big one for most people is the portability aspect of it. The fact that you can pick up your Nintendo Switch out of its dock and continue on your same game, your same save file, your same progress, etc. on the go that easy is a big draw for a lot of people. There are of course a couple of caveats with that. Visuals and performance are often downgraded into portable mode, sometimes to an exceptionally heavy degree, with select games even running in lower than standard definition. That's right, you have some games running in a lower resolution than the original Nintendo Wii, and even the Nintendo GameCube to an extent. This may sound like nitpicking, but when you have such a sheer drop off in quality, it's exceptionally noticeable, and it can easily make you question, what is going on with my new unit, with my new 2017 hardware? Why is it looking like this? Definitely something to consider when it comes to that. So what else does Nintendo offer as well, other than the portability side of it and their own exceptionally high quality first party titles? Unfortunately, that's basically it. The Nintendo Switch has been criticized as a very bare bones console and very bare bones experience. In fact, it only just recently got the go-ahead for its first video streaming app. The online system that's in place at the moment is currently the lowest quality of all three platforms. Granted, it is currently free at the moment, but it has to be said that they do plan on charging for it down the line. Granted, it will also be about €30, roughly half price of its competitors, but of all the details we have on all at the moment, it seems that the quality of the service is not going to be improved whatsoever, and the quality as it stands is exceptionally bad. And when talking about the online multiplayer experience in the online multiplayer system, that subscription service that we just talked about, it will be required to play online multiplayer games when that service comes into effect. Something that does need to be talked about in relation to it as well is the whole voice chat and online service system and the communication system and matchmaking, etc. that Nintendo has opted to use. This is no longer built into the Nintendo Switch. It's no longer integrated into every individual game. It's all handled in a separate third-party smartphone application, which is extremely cumbersome and arguably next to useless, especially when you consider all the limitations that have been put on it, and the fact that you will now need another extra additional device just to be able to chat to people in voice communication for your games. Something that has been solved on consoles since 2004, 14 years ago. It's definitely worth taking how cumbersome that is into the experience. That leads us to another issue that the Nintendo Switch actually has. It has an absolute paltry 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which is actually not enough for many of the games on the Nintendo Switch. Many of the games are so large, even on their physical forms, that you actually have to download large portions onto the Nintendo Switch from the internet in order to play the entire game. Some games are even so large that even with a physically bought version of the game, you still need to purchase additional microSD memory just to be able to play the game on the console. A perfect example of this is NBA 2K18. Even if you go down to your local GameStop or buy it from Amazon or wherever and they send you out a little game card for it, that game is actually so large that you are required to buy external memory just to play the full version of the game. And granted, the games are getting bigger and bigger as time goes by, and are already a significant hefty number of games that require this practice on the Nintendo Switch. It's likely going to increase in number as time goes by, forcing many people to buy more and more microSD cards, and even potentially losing them. One extra knock-on effect of this, granted this one is much further considerably down the line, is that games like LA Noire, a game that does require half the game to be downloaded in order to play the content, and NBA 2K18, etc, etc. What happens when these games are no longer supported and the Switch servers go offline? Your physically bought game card edition will be absolutely useless because it won't have the entirety of the game on it. Now, you can always argue and just say that that's a problem for much further down the line that you don't have to worry about. Many people like to keep these systems for years upon years to get as much value as possible out of them. And just as a comparison, I have NES and SNES games from 20-30 years ago on my shelf that I can still put into their systems this day and play 100% in their entirety. Something that cannot be said for the Nintendo Switch once that happens. Something kind of disappointing and also worth mentioning at the moment as its lack of inclusion is something Nintendo themselves pioneered back on the Nintendo Wii, the Virtual Console, where they could have a digital download service of many of their previous consoles from like the NES, the SNES, the N64, and maybe even rival platforms like the Sega Master System, the Sega Mega Drive, etc. This feature that they basically pioneered on the Wii, continued onto the Wii U, as well as the 3DS and new 3DS, is currently absent in every capacity from the Nintendo Switch. It's also something when questioned about, Nintendo are very cagey about, and basically will not comment in any way, shape or form in a positive light. It leaves a lot of people remaining skeptical and even worried that they could mess up this virtual console experience. Something which is a huge draw to many people who grew up playing NES, SNES, N64 games, and other consoles from that era. Because of the portability and hybrid nature of the Switch, it's a very attractive proposition to be able to have them all on that one unit, be able to pick it up, play it on the go, and then sit down, connect it to your TV, and be able to continue on with no problem. So that pretty much covers it for the Nintendo Switch. I will mention one more time that the biggest detriment of the Nintendo Switch is the lack of power of the unit, and how other third-party companies are unable to bring over their largest heavy hitters on Nintendo Switch because of it. So before we move on to the final verdict, let's just hit up the price scene as well. It's very hard to find the Nintendo Switch at any sort of deal or discount. So here in Europe, you're looking at paying €330 for a Nintendo Switch. That will come with no additional anything other than the base bundle and what's included with it, which means no games, no external memory, no anything in that aspect. So when it comes to it, would I recommend buying the Nintendo Switch as a primary console? And that is where I'm going to have to say no. Granted, on the Nintendo Switch, you will be able to find Nintendo's absolute top of the line first party quality games like Zelda, Metroid, Mario, Smash, Mario Kart, now Splatoon, ARMS, etc. You will be cutting yourself off from a significantly large portion of third-party support and high-end third-party support. You will get a huge range of lower-end games and indie titles, but it's not something that's going to replace your PlayStation 4 or Xbox One for many users. The Switch works as a fantastic supplementary console or second system, because you can have a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, get all your large AAA third-party games, some of your quality first-party games as well, and on the Nintendo side of it, using that as your supplementary console, you can get your amazing quality experiences like Zelda, Mario, Metroid, etc. But having said all that, even with all those criticisms and flaws of the Nintendo Switch, it has some amazing games, it's selling exceptionally well, and it probably isn't going to slow down anytime soon. Having said all that, there's not much we know about what's coming for 2018 compared to the other consoles, where we do know a lot of what's coming for 2018. So hopefully this video has been informative for you as well when considering buying a Nintendo Switch or seeing what a Nintendo Switch has to offer. If you have any other additional questions or anything, leave them in the comments section below. I can get back to you about them as well if you have any concerns. If you found a video helpful or informative in any way, feel free to hit the like button and let me know in the comment section as well. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you like to see more kind of content like this, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.